All right, let's dive in today. We're taking a close look at the coming wave.
Okay.
This book, it's by Mustafa Suleyman
Right.
and Michael Bhaskar.
Yeah.
Now, Suleyman, you might recognize the name. He's the co-founder of DeepMind.
Oh, well, yeah.
They're the folks behind AlphaGo, the AI that, shocked everyone by beating a world champion at Go.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And Bhaskar, he's a historian. So, interesting combo, right?
Interesting perspective, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And together, they make this really bold argument.
Mm-hmm.
They say, we're not just seeing another, tech upgrade here. This isn't just the next iPhone or whatever.
Right.
They say it's a wave of change
Yeah.
as big as, like, discovering fire or inventing the printing press. Seriously.
Wow.
Yeah. And they paint this picture of the future where you could, like, grow a house from DNA or, design a virus on a computer. It's heady stuff.
I mean, that sounds kind of scary, but also, like, so cool.
Right. So today, in this deep dive, we got to unpack this, right?
Right.
What's driving this wave? What makes this one so different? And the big question, are we ready for it?
I mean, I'm not sure I am, just from what you've said already.
Yeah. It's a lot to process.
It is.
What I found really fascinating is how they link these, like, totally different technologies, right?
Yeah.
AI, that's artificial intelligence, in case anyone's, tuning in for the first time.
Yeah.
And then synthetic biology, like making stuff with DNA.
Uh-huh.
They see them as, like, intertwined.
Really?
Yeah, feeding off each other, creating this, like, mega wave of change.
Okay, so how does that work? How are those two connected?
Well, they use this analogy of the internal combustion engine to kind of make the
Like
point.
the engine, like in cars and stuff?
Exactly. But they don't just stop at, like, cars are now a thing.
Right.
They go deeper. They're like, okay, cars change transport, sure.
Yeah.
But then that reshaped cities, economies. Even warfare is different because of engines.
Huh. I guess I never thought about it that way.
Right. It's like suddenly we have suburbs because people can commute.
Oh, that's true.
We become reliant on oil.
Right.
Wars are fought over oil fields.
Yeah.
All because of this one invention. That's what they're getting at. Technology, it doesn't stay put.
Oh,
It ripples outward in ways we often can't even predict.
okay, I'm starting to get it. So AI and synthetic biology, they're like the new engines.
Exactly. And the ripples from them, those are going to be huge. They use the term general purpose waves.
Okay, general purpose.
Yeah, it's like not just a tool, it's a foundation that makes a ton of other inventions and changes possible.
Like electricity was like that, right?
Exactly. And the reason these two, AI and bio stuff, are the biggies now,
Yeah. Why those?
well, part of it is just how fast they're advancing. Think about Moore's law,
Uh-huh.
computing power doubling every 2 years.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Okay, so similar things happening in biology. The cost of reading DNA, it's plummeted.
Oh, wow.
Like, it's crazy cheap now.
So we can just like read anyone's DNA now.
Pretty much. And not just reading it, editing it too.
Editing, like changing it.
Yeah, that's where synthetic biology comes in, making stuff with DNA.
So like, are we talking designer babies and stuff?
Well, that's a whole other ethical can of worms, but yeah, that's on the table.
Whoa.
But it goes beyond that, right? Think about medicine.
Uh-huh.
They talk about AI-powered drug discovery, personalized meds tailored to your exact DNA.
So no more like one-size-fits-all pills.
Potentially, yeah. Your genes could tell doctors exactly what you need. Pretty wild, huh?
That's insane. But what about like the dangers? You've mentioned designing viruses.
Right, and that's where the containment problem comes in.
Containment.
Yeah. Throughout history, people have tried to control technology.
Like ban it or something?
Exactly. Queen Elizabeth I, she tried to ban a knitting machine.
Really? A knitting machine?
Yep. China tried to isolate itself from the world for centuries. Didn't really work, did it?
I guess not.
Technology, it kind of finds a way. But with this wave, the stakes are higher than ever.
I mean, we're talking about life itself, right?
Exactly. Altering the very essence of what it means to be human. So, before we get into all that,
Yep.
let's break down these technologies a bit more, shall we?
Okay.
Starting with AI. Everyone's talking about ChatGPT these days.
Yeah. Can't escape it.
Right. But the book goes way deeper. They use this example of AlphaGo.
The Go playing AI.
That's the one. And it wasn't just that it won, it was how W it played. AlphaGo made moves that human experts thought were like total blunders.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But then as the game went on, they saw how those mistakes actually set up brilliant long-term strategies.
So it was thinking further ahead than the humans.
Exactly. And that's where it gets kind of freaky. AI might be uncovering knowledge, strategies, even creativity that we haven't even thought of yet.
So it's not just doing what we tell it to. It's like learning on its own.
Exactly. And they talk about this other AI, AlphaFold.
Okay.
This one can predict the 3D shape of proteins.
Proteins, like the stuff in our bodies.
Yep. Just from looking at the DNA sequence, this is huge E for medicine.
So it can tell you how a protein is going to fold just from its DNA.
Exactly. Like having a blueprint for life itself. It's revolutionizing drug discovery, disease research, all sorts of stuff.
Wow. Okay, so that's the cool side of AI. But what about, like, the surveillance stuff?
You're right. Can't ignore that. Especially what China's doing.
Yeah, using facial recognition and all that.
That's one of the big concerns they raise. AI has amazing potential, but it can also be misused. Big time.
So it's not just about the tech itself, it's about how we use it.
100%. We can't just be passive, right? We got to be active in shaping this future, make sure it's a future we actually want.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
All right, so let's move on to synthetic biology. This one, it can sound like sci-fi.
Yeah, a little bit.
But it's becoming very real. And the book, they actually do a good job explaining it.
Okay, good.
Even CRISPR. You've heard of that.
Yeah, but I don't really get it.
It's basically like DNA scissors. Yeah, so super precise. You can cut and paste genes with it.
So we can, like, change DNA that easily?
Pretty much. It's already being used to treat diseases.
Huh.
Create crops that can handle droughts.
Really?
Yeah, even in, like, DIY biolabs. People are messing with the stuff at home.
Wow, that's kind of scary.
It is. And then there's these things called DNA synthesizers. Like, imagine a 3D printer.
Oh.
But instead of plastic, it prints DNA strands.
So you can, like, print out genes.
Exactly. The book talks about, like, downloading a blueprint and growing a house or a toy. It's wild. But obviously big questions about control, right?
Oh, definitely.
Unintended consequences, all that.
Right, right.
What's crazy is how these two fields, AI and synthetic bio, they're kind of merging.
They are.
Yeah, each one makes the other one go faster. That's what makes this wave so different, so powerful, and potentially so disruptive.
Okay, so back to that question. Are we ready for this?
Well, to answer that, we got to understand what's driving it, right? What they call the unstoppable incentives. We'll get into that next.
And it's not just, you know, scientists being curious.
Yeah.
The book, it digs into this, like how profit is a factor.
Yeah.
National ambition, too.
Great, like countries wanting to be on top.
Exactly. China, they even mention China by name.
Oh, yeah. Their whole AI push is massive.
It's huge. And even, like, individual ego plays a role.
Oh, for sure. Like researchers wanting to make the next big breakthrough.
Exactly. It's this, like, crazy mix of motivations, pushing the limits of what's possible.
You mentioned China, and it makes me think, you know, if one country goes all in on AI,
Yeah.
other countries, they might feel like they got to keep up, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Even if it means, like, cutting ethical corners.
Right, and that's one of the things the book worries about.
Yeah.
How this whole wave could make existing tensions worse, maybe even create new ones.
It's not just countries, though, right?
Right, yeah.
I got to think about these mega corporations, too.
Like Apple, Amazon, those guys.
Exactly. They've already got more power than some countries, haven't they?
It's kind of wild, yeah. And with AI and this bio stuff, I mean, who knows how much more powerful they'll get.
It's almost like, will we be citizens of countries or customers of corporations?
Whoa, yeah.
Like, what if healthcare, education, even security, it's all provided by these tech giants?
That's a bit scary, isn't it? Like, we'd be at the mercy of their algorithms.
That's one possibility. But the book, it also looks at another side.
Right.
Decentralization.
Okay, so not everything getting concentrated in these huge companies.
Right. AI and synthetic bio, they could actually empower smaller groups.
Huh, how so?
Imagine, like, your local community using AI to manage its own resources.
Hey.
Or producing its own medicine with synthetic biology.
Okay, that sounds pretty utopian, actually.
Right. A return to local control, but with futuristic tech.
But wouldn't that also lead to, like, more conflict if everyone has this tower?
That's the other side of the coin. They talk about that, too.
Oh.
Like DIY bioweapons or, like, AI hacking getting out of control.
Yeah, that doesn't sound good.
It's a trade-off, right? More freedom, but also more potential for chaos.
So it's like mega corporations on one side, small communities on the other.
And the nation state stuck in the middle.
It's going to have to change, won't it?
Adapt or die, maybe.
Yeah. And the book, it makes this point. Governments are just too slow.
They can't keep up with the tech?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Regulations, the usual solution, it just doesn't work the same way anymore.
So if governments are falling behind, what does that mean for us?
Well, they talk about these things called fragility amplifiers.
Fragility amplifiers, what are those?
Basically, things that make existing problems worse
Right.
or create new vulnerabilities.
Okay, give me an example.
Deepfakes. AI can make these super realistic fake videos now.
Yeah, I've seen those. Freaky stuff.
It's going to erode trust in the media even more.
Like, how do you even know what's real anymore?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, like, AI-powered cyber attacks.
Oh, right. Everything's connected to the internet these days.
And those systems, they become even more vulnerable the more complex they get.
And it's not just, like, hacking your bank account.
No. We're talking power grids,
Oh, wow.
hospitals, transportation systems.
It's a scary thought.
And then the book brings up lab leaks.
Oh, with these synthetic biolabs.
Yeah. Imagine a deadly engineered virus getting out.
On purpose or by accident?
Either way, it's not a good situation.
It's not just physical stuff, though, is it?
No.
This wave, it could make social problems worse, too.
Right. Job displacement, that's a big one.
Like robots taking everyone's jobs.
Kind of. But this time, it's not just factory workers.
It's AI replacing white-collar jobs, too.
Exactly. Lawyers, accountants, even programmers.
I mean, AI can write code now, right?
It can. It's getting better all the time.
That's kind of unsettling.
And then there's the surveillance thing again.
Right, the whole China situation.
They're using AI to monitor people on a huge scale.
Facial recognition, social credit scores, all that.
Imagine a world where your every move is tracked, analyzed.
And judged.
Yeah. It's a pretty dystopian future.
So it's like, this future, it's full of amazing possibilities.
But also some really dark potential outcomes.
It's a tough balance.
It is. And the book, it doesn't shy away from that.
They face it head on.
They even have a whole section on catastrophic and dystopian risks.
That's going to be a fun read.
Well, it's not exactly lighthearted.
I bet. No.
But it's important,
Yeah.
to think about these things.
So what are some of the worst case scenarios they talk about?
Well, we already mentioned a few, right? Engineered pandemics,
Right.
AI going rogue, the surveillance state.
Okay, but it gets worse.
They talk about AI systems getting so complex
Yeah.
that we don't even understand them anymore.
Like they become truly alien.
Exactly. We wouldn't even know what their goals are.
That's like straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Except it's not sci-fi, is it? It's something we have to think about. NW.
It's a lot to process. So we've got these amazing technologies,
Yeah.
but also these potentially devastating risks.
Hmm.
What do we do about it?
Well, the good news is the book doesn't just leave us hanging.
Okay, good.
They do have some solutions, a whole plan for how to deal with this.
A plan for, like, containing the wave.
Exactly. They call it a multifaceted approach. It involves technical stuff, regulations, working together globally.
Even cultural shifts, right.
Right. It's a big ask, but they think it's possible.
Okay, so let's break down this plan a bit. First up, they talk about technical safety.
Right. So that's about building safeguards right into the technologies.
Okay, like what? Give me an example.
For AI, it could be like a kill switch.
Like if the AI starts going haywire, we can just turn it off.
Basically, yeah. Or for synthetic bio, designing viruses that can't replicate outside a lab.
So it's like thinking about the problems before they happen.
And designing solutions right into the tech.
That makes sense. But even with those safeguards, you still need oversight, right?
Oh, for sure. And they talk about that too. Audits and transparency, they call it.
Okay, what does that mean?
Basically, independent groups who can keep an eye on things.
Like making sure these safeguards are actually in place.
Exactly. And that companies and researchers are following the rules.
Checks and balances. I like it.
But even then, technology can still be unpredictable, right?
Oh, yeah, totally. So what else do they suggest?
They talk about choke points.
Choke points. What are those?
It's about controlling access to certain key resources,
Okay.
like the advanced chips needed for AI
Uh-huh.
or the equipment used for DNA synthesis.
So by controlling the supply of these things,
We can kind of slow down the pace of development.
buy ourselves some time to figure things out.
Exactly. Make sure we're not getting ahead of ourselves.
But wouldn't people argue that's like stifling innovation?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the book acknowledges that.
Okay.
It's a trade-off, but they say sometimes slowing down might be necessary.
To avoid those catastrophic risks,
Exactly.
it's a tough call. But even with all the tech solutions,
Yeah,
it seems like we need a bigger change, like in how we think about technology.
100%. And that's where shifting incentives comes in.
Okay, remind me what that means again.
It's about rewarding companies for doing the right thing.
So, like, not just focusing on profit.
Right. Giving tax breaks to companies that prioritize safety, ethics.
Or even punishing companies that, like, recklessly develop dangerous tech.
Exactly. Changing the rules of the game, so to speak.
But how do you actually de-do that? Like, convince companies to put ethics before profit?
It's a tough one, for sure. But the book argues it's essential.
Like, we got to change the whole narrative around this.
Yeah. Make it clear that long-term thinking, sustainability, ethics,
Yeah.
it's not just good for humanity, it's good for business, too.
I mean, that makes sense. If you can align those incentives,
Right.
it's more likely to happen.
Exactly.
So with all these solutions, are they actually optimistic about the future?
They are, but it requires, like, a shift in perspective. Recognizing that we're all in this together.
Global cooperation.
Exactly. No one country can handle this alone.
It's too big.
Exactly. They call for a global effort, setting common standards.
Sharing information, working together to solve these problems.
It's a big ask, but they think it's the only way.
It's a message of hope, but also like a huge challenge.
It is, to collaborate on a scale we haven't really seen before.
That's a lot to take in. We'll be back after a short break to discuss the final takeaway from this deep dive into the coming wave. We're back, and wow, this book, The Coming Wave, it's given us a lot to think about, hasn't it?
It really has. I mean, so much potential, but also, those risks we talked about, they're not small potatoes.
No, not at all. It feels like we're on the verge of something huge. But ultimately, I think the authors, they are optimistic.
Yeah, they are. They think we can handle this.
Yeah.
But we got to be proactive.
Not just like sitting back and waiting to see what happens.
Exactly. We have to shape this future.
They bring up the Luddites, which I thought was interesting.
Oh, yeah, the machine-smashing guys.
Right. At first, I was like, okay, cautionary tale about resisting progress.
Yeah.
But they kind of flip it, don't they?
They do. They say, yeah, the Luddites, they failed to stop the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
But their fears about technology changing their lives, those weren't totally wrong.
Like, their jobs were disappearing.
Exactly. And the book argues we need to learn from that.
Okay, so what's the lesson?
It's about making sure this wave, it benefits everyone, not just a small group of people.
So it's not just about inventing new tech.
No.
It's about making sure it's used in a fair way.
Right. Thinking about the social impact, the economic consequences.
Making sure everyone has a chance to, like, participate in this future.
Exactly. And that means having those hard conversations now.
About ethics, about equity.
Yeah, what kind of world do we want to build?
So what's the big takeaway for our listeners? What should they be thinking about after all this?
I think the main point is we're at a decision point. The choices we make now, they matter.
They'll shape what this future looks like.
Exactly. It's not just up to governments or big tech companies.
That's not all of us.
Right. To be informed, to get involved, to make our voices heard.
Yeah, to shape the future we want.
Exactly. The future's not set in stone. We have the power to decide where this wave takes us.
Well said. The Coming Wave. It's a book that really makes you think. And I hope it sparks some, important thoughts for you, our listeners as well.
It's definitely a must-read.
If you want to understand what's coming next, this is the book to pick up.
It's not always easy reading, but it's essential.
Definitely. And that's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, keep exploring those big ideas and keep shaping that future.